Hello, 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 beautiful soul, and welcome to your mini live training. Tonight's topic is on control. So if you are a control freak, you are in good company, my friend, because I know what that's like. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Connie. If you don't know me, I am an anxiety coach, and I help people regain control and reclaim their joy. I help you create a new relationship with your anxiety and make anxiety your friend. I know it sounds wild, but it is totally possible. Today, specifically, we are going to be diving into control and how that intertwines with anxiety, and what you could do about it, because I feel like it's important. And there's a couple of reasons why I felt kind of called to do this tonight. The first one is that it's really been something that I have struggled with in my life, in my anxiety journey. It has definitely been a process for me, and I'm still working on it. And I know how hard that's been. And also, anytime I work with a client, it's the first thing that people, or one of the first things that people ask me about. And that's not a coincidence, right? It's just a very common partnership between the need or the feeling of needing to control or be in control all the time and anxiety. So that's why I wanted to be here. I wanted to give you some tools that I've learned, and we'll go from there. So if you are someone who identifies as a control freak, or you have those feelings of like, I don't understand why I get so anxious when I feel like I'm not in control. I don't understand why I can't handle change well. Like if change happens and it like throws you for a loop every time because you don't like that. I totally get it. I've been there, and sometimes it manifests in like actually trying to control our kids, trying to control our spouses, trying to control things at work. So there's like there's different ways that control or lack thereof manifests in our lives. So before we kind of get into what you can actually do about that, we need to understand where that need to control comes from before we can actually do anything about it. So the first point that I want you to walk away with is the knowledge that there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are not a control freak because you are a bad person. You're not a control freak because like you just want to always like have the reins. It's not that. So I know that there's a lot of shame that comes with a lot of these things that we have. So I just want to off the rip just let you know that we need to stand firm in the knowledge that there's actually nothing wrong with you. And the reason I say that is because you're amazing and divine and a miracle that you're here on earth with us. But beyond that, we need to understand where these things come from. So a lot of these bad habits, and I use air quotes because I'm really trying to steer away from putting things in categories of good or bad. Because when we put things in categories of good or bad, usually the bad things we just want to stay as far away from. And in this circumstance, in situations like this, that hinders us because we can't dive deep and understand why these things are happening. That's why we keep hitting our heads against the same wall. And beyond that, it's not good either way, because I think for me, I've learned that it is much better to approach life as like life is just happening and it's neither good nor bad. So I can just be thankful for this moment and what this moment has is providing me. But that is a whole other tangent. We can do a whole other live video about that. But when we talk about our bad habits, or these like being a control freak is a bad habit, we need to understand that those habits, anything like that, it was created or you learned it as a way to protect you. As a way to shield you, or as a way to help you survive. So these like needs to control aren't born out of you being a horrible person, right? There was a point in your life where you needed that in order to feel safe, in order to feel protected. So we have to honor that first and foremost, for sure. And think about where control may come from. Like, for example, one one circumstance could be that maybe as a kid, people were kind of talking around you and making decisions for you and never including you in decision making, right? Which is very common that we kind of see kids that way, right? And we just kind of like talk around them and make decisions for them and pull them here. That can make you feel it's really disempowering for a kid. And it can kind of create that idea that, well, I feel out of control, and then as adults we overcompensate and then try to control as much as we possibly can. And totally normal, totally natural, because we're just humans doing our best, right? But that really, when we just attach to that, is when that can hinder us. So that's why it's so important to first recognize, like, where's this need to control coming from, right? Where does it stem from? And then the second part of that is recognizing that most of our bad attributes or bad tendencies, they gave us results at some point. And that's why it's so hard to detach from them. At some point, being controlling was serving you. At some point, being controlling what has made you successful. A lot of people who are control freaks are also really organized. A lot of people who are control freaks are also really assertive. They're great students, they're great leaders, which then creates that kind of disconnect where you're like, your brain is kind of like, why would we try to get rid of this when it's helped us so much? So that's what we have to understand, that that part of us, that's just a part of you. It's not your identity. It's just a part of your identity because you picked it up, you learned it, you thought that it was going to serve you, and that's all it is. It is not your identity. You are not a control freak. It's just that a part of you feels the need to control sometimes. And it's an important distinction, because when we attach ourselves to an identity, there's nowhere to grow from there. There's nowhere to change. There's no place to make a different decision. So understanding there's nothing wrong with me. This was all created. This was all a part of me trying to protect myself. Now, as a conscious adult, I can choose to make a different decision. And that leads us right into how we reframe that. Okay, so now that we understand why do we need to control things, we can reframe it. So this is a really important I don't want to say epiphany, but just an important realization that I had, which is that I don't have control issues. You don't have control issues. You just have misplaced control. And what I mean by that is that we tend to spend all of our time focusing all of our energy on things that we can't actually control, right? Other people, life around us, external factors. And we do that because we like to feel like we're in control, which is why when anything happens that reminds us that we are not in control, we tend to freak out. Because the truth is that control and security are an illusion, right? Because nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 seconds, right? So there is no real like security or control. And we know that to be true. If we spent all day thinking about it, we would literally not get anything done. That's why we don't. But when things like a pandemic hit, that's a very, very real reminder of the lack of control that we have. When suddenly your plans change and you weren't expecting that, that is a reminder that you're not always in control. And that's why you feel like that, because we have been putting our energy into a space that we can't ever control. So we're never going to find fulfillment there. We're never going to be fulfilled or feel content in that space because it's not natural. But that does leave us with some energy, and what are we going to do with that? So what I want to encourage you to do, and what the idea is to take that energy that we spend trying to control all of our external stuff and just shift it and start focusing all of our energy into controlling what we can control, which is our thoughts, which dictate our actions, which then dictates our future. So that has to be where all our energy goes, in focusing on controlling nothing but your thoughts, nothing but how you react to what is coming at you. And that doesn't mean like don't ever make a decision again. And there's extremes to everything. But especially if you are somebody who struggles with the lack of control, saying you don't have to stop being controlling. Just focus on controlling your thoughts and the spirals. Focus on controlling your self-talk. Focus on controlling your actions, right? The decisions that you make with the feelings that you're having. So now that we have all that information, like tactically, like tangibly, what do we do, right? So the first thing that I would suggest, and that has really, really helped me in my journey with this, is identifying how control shows up in your life. And it may seem really simple, but actually sitting down and thinking about where you struggle and writing it down, coming into moments where you feel out of control and then taking note of that, right? And you don't need to change anything at first, right? You can still freak out like you usually do, but start with just that awareness. Where is this happening in my life? What circumstances am I in where I'm feeling out of control? Because once you do that, you can create a plan for when you feel out of control. And that can look like, taking deep breaths, counting to 10, having a mantra that you say every time you feel out of control. Something that's gonna bring you back to remind you that, okay, this is external, not my business. Let me focus on controlling what I can control, which is my thoughts. That's why mantras work. Personally, I would suggest that. That's the best. For example, today, my husband had a meeting, which he had told me about, but I hadn't put it in my calendar. So for me and my reality today, this was completely new information to me. So when he came and he was like, hey, I need to hop on the computer in 5 minutes, I was like, okay. And that's like a control thing. My schedule changed, my ideas changed. I was in the middle of doing something, and I would have freaked out because I lost control, and I don't like that. So I took a deep breath, and I started getting my stuff together, and I was saying, Connie, you are so flexible. You move like water. Connie, you are so flexible. You move like water. Connie, you are so flexible. You move like water, for like a minute and a half. And then I sat down on the couch. It ended up working out great because I was sitting in a corner of the couch, and then the sun was shining in, and I got to journal, and it ended up being great. And then I'm creating evidence that, like, okay, look, when you relinquish that control, it's okay. It's okay. Everything's okay. And listen, this is work that I've put in to get to this point. So I don't want you to get discouraged. The number one thing to remember is you have to be patient with yourself, okay? You have to be kind. You have to know that you're learning. You're exercising a muscle that you haven't exercised, and you got to give yourself this space to mess up, this space to freak out, and then say, okay, that wasn't great. I'm going to try again next time, okay? So before I hop off, I want to just give you a quick little recap that you can walk away with when it comes to control and feeling better about the relationship that you have with control. And the first thing that I want you to take away again is that there is nothing wrong with you. These habits that we form are usually there to protect us. We can say, thank you so much for protecting me. I am going to move in a more conscious and intentional direction, and go forth from there. The second thing that I want you to remember is that you don't have control issues, you just have misplaced anger. So always be thinking like, am I controlling something? Is this external or internal? External or internal? And recognizing that the biggest shift has to be in controlling your thoughts. Control your thoughts, so just shift that energy. And you can use mantras, you can use deep breathing, you can use counting to 10. Those are really, really great tools to find a second to make a different decision when you are feeling out of control. And before I hop off, I want to leave you with one final thought, is to remember, this was actually originally like, I think Morgan Freeman said it in a movie, but it just keeps coming up in my life, which is the original thing he said was that if you ask God for patience, he's not going to give you patience. He's going to give you circumstances that are going to test your patience so you can prove how patient you are. That applies to everything. So if you are asking the universe, God, whatever, yourself, that you want to stop being so controlling, be prepared to get the chance to show it, and get prepared to have a lot of things pop up that make you feel out of control, because those are all opportunities for you to exercise this new muscle, try again, and find a place where you feel comfortable in the relationship that you have with control. And that's all I have for you guys tonight. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I am here. Send me a message, whatever you guys need. And if there's something that you want me to cover, maybe I want to challenge myself to do these weekly. So if there's something that you have questions on and you want me to cover, please feel free to let me know. I will post this on IGTV for all of those who hopped on late or who want to rewatch. So if you know somebody else who's struggling with control issues and you think that this would help them, please go ahead and forward it to them. And again, let me know how I can serve you. I love you guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Stay blessed. I love you.